I'll just go back to the presentation. Cool. Let's start it off. Shall I hand it over to the screen? Hi everyone. I know we can't answer back because you're all on mute, so I can say whatever I want. But anyway, right, just getting everything in place. I think there's a few more due to join, so we'll give them a minute or two. I'll just share the screen here while we're waiting. Now, see my screen now. So, can we just check around to make sure we can see?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So look, I think we'll kick off. So listen, thanks for joining again our monthly webinars. We're always looking for interesting kind of things to talk about and relevant topics, and as well, if people out there actually have something they want us to talk about in the future, please reach out, because it's good to know what people are thinking and people are worried about, and things people want information on. So today we actually almost going back to basics here, and like we were actually thinking about what would you, if you're starting off from scratch, if you had the ability to start with a blank sheet of paper, what would you actually design, and what kind of architecture would you have to have a resilient email service? Because as we all know, email has been around forever, but it's still the main front door for all threats. Like 90% of all threats that happen, incidents that happen inside of an organization originate through a link or an email, or a link in an email, a phishing exploit or a Trojan or whatever via email. So email is by far still the biggest vector of attack. So what we're going to do here is talk about some recent threats we've seen. I've got Gavin here as well, our CTO. So he's the brains of the operation. So he'll be available to answer any questions about this stuff, but also take you through some of the slides. I'll also be looking at the non-technical aspects of this as well. And some of you may have seen some of this at our recent event in Teeling's Distillery, where we presented the kind of like the impacts on you guys, actually, the people at the coalface, where like a security incident actually happens, and the impact it can have on you, which is often forgotten about, and organizations don't really often care about. Then we're going to take it through that the onion, as we're calling it, kind of the layers of the resilient email security architecture. And then Gavin's going to take you through some best practice stuff at the end. And then literally any questions or anything we can give you advice on, please feel free to ask us questions. This can be as quick or as long as you want it to be. So let's crack on. So the first one, I'm going to hand over to Gavin to take us through these. So these are kind of an overview of the recent kind of email security threats we've seen.
Thanks, Niall. Yeah, so bad actors are getting smarter. So the end of last year, we saw a definite rise in a few tactics, and I think those tactics are probably born of the traditional gateway performing so well, so that these bad actors have taken on a few new approaches, and we're definitely seeing a rise in them. One is malicious QR codes that are being delivered in emails. What we tend to see is quite often the QR codes arrive in, they have a URL, the URL is safe. After the email has arrived, the URL is changing with redirects and then becoming dangerous. The same then can be said for OneDrive. We've seen OneDrive links arriving in that are safe. They pass through all of the checks. There's no reputational issues. Then at a point in the future, they become dangerous. Again, attachments that have URLs in them, same thing. We've seen redirects changing more. And then again with targeted whaling and spear phishing attacks. So all of these really, they're similar in approach, but we've seen a rise in how many of them are actually happening. Later on, I'm going to just kind of walk through sandboxing as well, what it does, how it's relevant here. I'm sure many of you have heard about Inbox Protect product. when we designed that originally, it wasn't specifically with this kind of issue in mind, but it became a perfect tool for handling these kind of things.
Yeah.
So as well, if anyone after this wants more information on Inbox Protect, if you haven't heard of it before, how it works, I can certainly send over some information.
Yeah, and just on that kind of the targeted whaling and phishing attacks, what we're seeing, this is one I saw last week actually from one of our own customers, and they got hit with their CFO, the very large organization, 10,000 users and above. Their CFO got a really good impersonation attack to some of his people, and they're working out like how did it happen, and I was able to show them that, and we'd actually warned them before that individual had been subject to an info stealer, because we do some dark web monitoring, and we notified them of this, and basically they had, even though this company had some apparently very good endpoints and MDRs and all the rest of it, solutions on-prem and on the devices, the device had been compromised and had appeared then an info stealer list with IP addresses and all this kind of detail about the actual individual, plus being compromised on another site as well. And so they were able to do a really targeted attack on this thing. So there's often multiple ways, especially if you're a high value target, that people are actually using information now and using AI to accumulate that information to actually target you. So that's something we'll be talking about later as well. We're also seeing just human behavior leading to a lot of the compromises as well. And like, either lack of awareness or can't be bothered or whatever. Now, I think most people on this call are actually okay here, but people not taking the SPF, DKIM and DMARC configuration changes that are required and compliances that are required now seriously, and then wondering suddenly why they can't actually even deliver mail outbound to people who want to receive it. And so that's probably our busiest thing at the moment, people coming in and panicking. Their outbound email isn't working, not even with mine security, because before they thought, oh, well, my SPF record is fine, and so I'm good to go, and that, unfortunately that's not enough anymore. You have to be fully DMARC compliant, policy equals reject read, to be sure that you have your domain locked down, it can't be spoofed, stop the impersonator fraud, stop and improve your deliverability on the outbound side. So we're still seeing a lot of that. We're also seeing that a lot of what people are doing for phishing awareness training and security awareness training isn't enough. It's more of a box ticking exercise, say for cyber audits and cyber insurance and things like that. They're not actually really trying to change behavior. And there are ways again of doing this, but most people aren't. And again, it could be down to, again, you guys are so busy and have so much going on that it's just hard to get around to, or if you do it, it's you're doing some very generic or basic kind of awareness training, and this stuff takes a lot of effort. It's not something you can actually kind of half-arse. You really have to do this properly, and again, that has an impact on then users actually doing silly things when emails come through. Another real growth we've actually seen now, because people are getting better, especially people on this call, I know most of you, and your security postures are pretty good, but you're only as good as your weakest link. And we're now seeing, especially again for the larger organizations or people with sensitive data or someone they want to target, they're actually targeting people that actually do business with you or actually work with you, say contractors or suppliers or even customers that you trust. And they may not have the same rigor and sophistication in their security posture. So they're using them as a vector of attack into your organization. So again, monitoring that, and there are ways of doing that now to make sure that you're kind of mitigating that outsider threat as well. That can damage you. And there's also people that actually you trust or your users trust as well. And we're also seeing, again, back to you guys again, because you guys are people too. You're not just techies. We're seeing a lot of burnout in the cybersecurity space, and this is across research I've seen in various different reports from Gartner and other people, that there is, there's so many systems, so many alerts, so many things going off that, like, it's hard to see the wood for the trees, and it's impacting on, the effectiveness of the IT staff, because they're being deluged with so many alerts and so many different systems to monitor, etc. So it's a tough time out there for you guys, and again, it's about simplifying it as much as you can, and trusting, having some good trusted partners. But alarmism aside, all that scary stuff, how much of a problem is cybercrime really? This is something I came across actually today, so I just dropped it in, because I still, especially the way the current environment is, and especially in the UK, I'm seeing it. Cybersecurity is still a grudge buy, even though everyone knows that all these threats that we've just been talking about are out there. Like, and it's not a grudge buy maybe from you guys, but it's like when you go to the business for funding for this, like, it's always like, going cap in hand nearly, like having to justify doing business cases, and it's almost almost only get budget when you actually have an issue, and suddenly then the budget's no issue at all. You get as much as you want, but then it's too late. The horse is bolted. The gates already open. So we're still seeing this a lot, and especially in the current environment where things are getting a little bit tighter out there for companies, that people are clamping down on budgets, and that's a really bad idea, because there was a World Economic Forum report out there recently that if cybercrime was a country, it would be the third largest economy in the world. Only China and the US is actually bigger than cybercrime. It's incredible. It's bigger than the drugs trade, counterfeiting, and human trafficking all combined all over the world. So this is the scale of what we're dealing with. This is not insignificant. And Allianz, the big insurance guys, they actually, like in their end of year report last year, said actually cyber incidents are the most important global risk facing businesses, like not climate change, not labor shortages, recessions, interest rates, all those kind of things. It's actually cyber incidents. So that's how serious this stuff is, and maybe it's worth even, and we're happy to do this, or taking some of these slides yourselves internally, and educating your C-suite and CFOs and stuff like that. That like this isn't just you talking about it. This is actually, the people who know about risk, who understand, how businesses that are run and the risk to business. That this is serious stuff and needs to be remediated. And again, I think I'm focusing a lot on you guys, because I think, we always focus on all the technology and stuff, but it's still about humans, and like all these, when someone gets hit by a business email compromise attack in an organization, everyone thinks about the money, how much did it cost, did they pay the ransom, how much did it cost the business to get back on an even footing again, all that kind of stuff. But there's way more than that involved when someone gets compromised, and there's a think tank in the UK called the Royal United Services Institute who did some research on this, and it's amazing some of the stuff they found. Like, it has effects all the way through, depending on the organisations involved, through the social economic kind of landscape, to like even like trust in national institutions like banks, health services, like things that you think should be like, kind of pillars of society, that they can be undermined by this stuff, by third party state actors, by whatever people just there for financial gain, that they can undermine. They can bring down banking systems, they can bring down health systems, health services. And it scares people, and that's not good. And for obviously the organizations involved, it's not just about financial, it's about brand and reputation and trust. And all those things take a massive battering, and in some cases are never actually retrieved. And we've actually seen, again, I won't mention individual companies, but in the UK, a couple of companies going bust because they did actually recover financially and actually system-wise from the actual attack, the ransomware attack, but no one would do business with them, or the people didn't trust them, or not enough people would continue to do business with them, and they lost the organization. And then for the people like you who actually have to deal with this, and you may have told the organization, we need this system, we need that system. That doesn't matter when the crap hits the fan. They all just look at you, and the stress goes on you, and you're working 24/7. You're working Weekends, you're getting stress at home from your partners and your kids and everything because you're not around. You're getting stressed at work because everyone's like, say, when are we going to be back up? But, when can we start working again? When can we get this data back? And I've personally seen 2 people actually have heart attacks and die since I've been in this organization from stress of a ransomware incident that happened to that organization. We know lots of people had strokes, like PTSD, literally, like had to take sick leave because their nerves were shattered after it, and the workload and the stress of this. So it's not just about financial harm; it's actually also for yourselves. And again, HR departments don't really care about this stuff and don't really look at this stuff. Well, not that I've seen anyway. And again, it may be worth bringing it to their attention that, like, the stress of something like this hitting a department, it's not just even the head, it's the whole team, because, like, it'll probably need everyone in the IT team to bring it back. And it's a very, very stressful time for anyone. Hopefully none of you have been involved in something like this, but if you have, you know what I'm talking about, and the stress it brings on individuals and teams. So I think not enough is actually spoken about that, and I think it's worth again highlighting, and maybe again taking and highlighting it internally in your own organizations. So now I'm going to take you through, from an email perspective, what we believe is a really good layered approach to protecting yourself from these kind of threats. So we kind of took the onion approach, and so we start with the actual inbox that you're looking at now, that you clicked on the link to come to this meeting, and as Gavin was talking about, before people weren't really looking at the data at rest. But to be honest, now almost data is inactive. Like there's active content in sorry, do you want to say it again?
Where that is exactly why where that lives, if you like, is exactly why we can start to look at email from a timeline perspective as opposed to during delivery.
Yeah.
That in itself is what's given us the ability to look at those threats that we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
And deal with them not when they're in transit, but actually when they become armed, when they're triggered,
Yeah.
So it's very important where that is. It's actually directly interacting with the inbox.
Yeah.
As opposed to through the delivery mechanism.
Yeah. And attachments, because things like attachments like links and macros can easily be then manipulated to be doing something different after the fact, like an hour or 2 hours a day later,
Yeah.
And it's actually actively scanning that. And we see this now because we've obviously got a service in this space now. And so again, Gavin can talk to you maybe offline, or if you want to chat in more detail about the stuff they're finding, and some of you are actually, I think on this call, are actually even using it. So you know about this, and it'd be interesting to hear your perspective if you wanted to speak up. As I mentioned, looking at the attachments, the URLs, social engineering. So they might not have any active content like an attachment or a URL, but if it's notified, subsequently it might be a social engineering scam that takes you down a rabbit hole. So there's a sequence of emails that don't have any clickable content, but will take you on a journey. And eventually there'll be some engagement and something will take you somewhere. And it's spotting those before they actually start to happen as well. And again, because we're monitoring the whole threat landscape, not just what's happening inside. If we see that something's been reported in a social engineering type one, again, actively going into everyone's inboxes and deleting those before they can actually become dangerous, so in real time. And then obviously the traditional, which is still the best line of defense, is to stop it even getting into your system. That's always the best. Is the gateway MX record based protection. You can do a lot more with the SPF, DKIM, DMARC checks and all that kind of stuff, rather than relying on Microsoft to do it. Reverse DNS lookups, all that stuff. Like Gavin can tell you about, having the TLS encryption in place, and then on top of that, making sure your DMARC, both inbound and outbound, is correct. As we spoke about, it's so important now, to be fully DMARC compliant, and also monitoring again your vulnerabilities on the dark web. At least to be aware that you have data out there, what type of data it is, and have mitigations in place with the users involved, teams involved, to be able to deal with that and protect yourself from that. And also look at the supply chain risk, as I mentioned as well, because again, that's becoming more and more of an issue as you guys become better and better at protecting yourselves. You need to actually look at the people you're doing business with. You know, I know for a fact with some of our customers, some of our larger customers, when they're signing large contracts with some of their customers, they have to show, you know, how they're protecting themselves, because these, like say, like a big multinational, say like BP, for example, will want for people dealing with them to show that they're not going to be a cyber risk to them as part of their supply chain, because they don't have the adequate protections in place if they're providing a service to them. And if you don't have those in place, then you can't actually do business with us. And that we're going to see a lot more of this, and it's going to come down the value chain, forgive the pun, down the value chain to smaller and smaller organizations. So if you're having to deal with the bigger organizations, they will, like those kind of I suppose compliance rigors and the, you know, agreements and understandings that you have to sign, saying that you have X, Y, and Z in place to ensure that you're not a risk to them, will be coming down to smaller and smaller organizations. So that's something people should be aware of now. It's only happening at the very top end at the moment, but that will cascade down. And then finally, you know, having someone monitoring this for you, whether it's yourself, your own stock, or having a managed monitoring service like ourselves, you know, keeping an eye on all this stuff 24/7, you know, knowing, like, you know, how, you know, and reacting in the moment when risks and things actually occur, so they don't actually spiral. And then layered across that, you have like your encryption, your large file sending, your management of those, your security awareness training, phishing awareness training, education, all the MFA type tools, email hygiene, admin access hygiene, all that kind of stuff. Who's got rights, who's got, you know, tidying stuff up, making sure that you're keeping an eye on all that stuff. It's all a key element of actually having of stopping actually the 90% of the threats. Like, you know, it's better to stop the threats here than let them get in. Whereas if you look at the budgets of most IT departments, they're spending 90% of the budget on the 10% protection, and they're spending 10% on the 90% protection, which is the email, the stuff actually coming in the front door. And it's an inverted pyramid almost in regards to the risk and you know the resources being put against mitigating that risk, which is and I think maybe that's because, and maybe Gavin has some thoughts, I don't know, it's because email has been around for so long, people just take it for granted. I don't know. It's not sexy and new and cool and like a new gadget, and it doesn't have enough AI in the name. We do have AI, but like, you know, we don't, every sentence doesn't have AI in it. Although speaking of AI, the next one does have AI. So, and this is kind of my approach. Is like, AI is great, and we obviously had that, but you also need HI, which I call human intelligence, and that's what we have layered across it, and that's the context and the knowledge, because you have lots of these systems who they are fantastic in doing you know, security prevention, but they also have lots of false positives and things like that, and you need that human knowledge, that human experience, like to actually filter to what is actually really dangerous and what's just noise. So anyway, that's enough of me talking. I think I'll hand over to Gavin now.
Yeah, I get asked quite often, you know, what is it that our sandboxing is actually doing? So I thought it'd be good today just to kind of take you through a bit of what it does, explain how it works, what sandboxing actually means from our point of view, and where maybe AI fits in. So what the way that I would best kind of explain this is we have what we call an AV scanner, and our AV scanner sits in front of the sandboxing. So when an email arrives into us that contains attachments, the first thing to look at it is the AV scanner. The AV scanner for us determines whether we've maybe seen it before. Do we have fingerprints for it? Do we already know that it's dangerous? Is it just a text-based file? If so, what's in it? Are there any URLs in there? And based on what that finds, it decides then whether an attachment should be quarantined, or whether we know it's safe, or whether it should go to sandboxing. There are a few different types of sandboxing that we have. We have sandboxing of QR codes, we have sandboxing of URLs, and then we have attachment sandboxing. In this case, it may be that the AV scanner has done an optical scan, picked up a QR code, in which case it will send it to the sandboxing for QR codes, where we will follow the QR code to see what it's doing. We'll interact with it. We'll look at any URLs or redirects that are in there. And at any point in our system, when we're looking at files or attachments like that, then if we find any URLs, we index them. That allows us to rescan them down the line and then act on them if there's an issue that presents itself because something's been armed at a later stage. For regular attachments going to Sandbox, we provide a specific environment, a virtual machine for each attachment that goes through. The Sandbox process is run on the file in that virtual machine, and then once it's done, it's destroyed. So every time a file goes through a system, that's happening. In there, we know exactly what kind of state that virtual machine is in at the beginning. The file is exploded in the environment, and we track things like if there's any modification or creation of processes, if anything's been injected, if there's any registry key changes. We look at the memory on the machine. As well, we do know that some files maybe would be executed within a machine and then interacted with by a user. So we do have AI in there that then goes and uses heuristics to basically mimic a user in the machine and perform various actions, looks at what the actual attachment can do, and then acts like maybe a user would act to see what happens. We do also check in there to see is there anything snooping around that might be looking to see if the file's been opened in a Sandbox. If it is, we can pick that up, and if we can pick that up, we can not necessarily find a verdict that's malicious, but we know that something's checking. So in that case, we would quarantine. The Sandbox will always err on the side of caution with anything like that. And there are cases where maybe something has been quarantined because of the Sandbox result, but we've had a question from a customer to say, I'm not quite convinced that that's dangerous. In that case, that's, as Niall mentioned, that's where the human element comes in, and we actually have a lab here where the guys will take it and they'll open it as a user in a safe environment to see what it's actually doing. That from time to time that happens. We do get a very, very good success rate from the sandboxing, but from time to time there is a question. The result might be that what was there ended up being safe.
Yeah.
It was a false positive, or what was there was actually dangerous. But it's always better to be cautious in that respect.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it does look at the state of that virtual machine to see how much it's changed by the end, and then it makes this verdict. There are places in there where there's machine learning going on, to look at certain heuristics to see, you know, is there something here that we're aware of? It might as well. It might also take an actual link that is a result of a file being opened that presents itself within the VM, and it will index that link, and it will perform all our normal sandboxing of the link to see is anything wrong there. All of this process as it carries through, anywhere that we detect QR codes with links, attachments with links, or basically a link resulting from a sandbox, we'll put that into an index. We'll rescan it every day for 5 days thereafter, and then if it becomes triggered at any point, that's when our inbox protect reacts on it.
Yeah.
So really, you know, the as I said, the sandboxing doesn't necessarily happen to every file that passes through. It happens to the file that we deem requires it, and that has worked very, very well for us. It's a good process.
Good.
You can also, this is kind of important, it can also immediately detect anywhere within the sandbox where encryption shows itself.
Mm.
So on any level, if any encryption is detected, it picks it up. We have got an excellent success rate with that. It's never failed, as far as we know, to pick up anything that has any form of encryption.
Okay.
It's a very, very good prevention for ransomware.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah.
Good. Well, look, I think that's basically it. I hope you found it useful. I'm just going to stop sharing now. So if anyone has any insights, thoughts, musings, whatever that they'd like to share with everyone, please feel free to reach out. I think Rianka's will unmute you all now, so it's either raise your hand or if you just start talking, and we can hopefully answer any of your questions. shy. A recording of this will be available. I'd imagine Rianka is, yes, I can see in the corner, it's been recorded. So an email will be sent out with a copy of this. So you'll be able to look at it at your leisure or share it with your teams, etc. And again, like if you wanted a more private chat with either myself or Gavin, that's absolutely fine as well. And our email addresses will be in that email, so you can reach out. Nobody? We put you all to sleep. Okay. Well, I thought someone was going to say something. Okay, then. Well, that's great.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for coming on, people. And like I say, others are saying thanks. Oh, great. Yeah, thanks, Mark. Listen, thanks very much for coming, guys. And like I say, we'll be sending out the information after this. So have a good rest of your day. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Just hit the chat window
I just said thank you. Great.